Shek ich, lautz takwachalak. In nim alel patakhukub panimaplo. Kamik kinsihoch alak chele nachtir alpul I ahawinel inich hanab pakal. For my sake, as much as anyone's, we'll do the rest in English, but that is Quiche, one of the Mayan languages, and the one spoken in-game by AoE 2's Maya units. Mostly. If you find the language unusual, you're not alone, as many aspects of the Maya civilization remain fairly obscure, despite it being one of the better-known New World civilizations. Here is the list of Maya AI leaders, and I'd be impressed if more than a couple of you know more than a couple things about more than a couple of them. But that will be the topic of another video, and today's focus is someone who is not on that list, but is the sole Maya hero in the scenario editor, Pakal II, also known as Pakal the Great, or Inich Hanap Pakal. Although it's possible that he was a warrior and certainly came to command the army, he was most likely not an archer, so we'll be depicting him as a nobleman for now. So what was so great about Pakal? Let's find out with a historical overview, and at the end we'll briefly cover how we might adapt his life to an AoE 2 campaign, as there currently is no Maya campaign. Now, Pakal was not the most iconic Maya military figure, although he had some success in that department, but he is easily one of the most broadly successful known Maya rulers, and was at very least the greatest ruler of Palenque, located in the modern state of Chiapas. Although from here on we'll be using the Maya name of that city, Lacamha, meaning Great Waters, and at the time of its occupancy was one of the wettest cities in the world, with underground channels being built to control the flow of excess water and provide dry space for buildings. Pakal's story is one of resilience, prosperity, and longevity, as one of the longer living and one of the longest continuously reigning kings in recorded history. In AoE 2 terms, he won the game not so much on a conquest mode, but rather by surviving until he could pull off a spectacular wonder victory. But his story begins with his home city on the wrong end of a near regicide. Pakal was born in 603 AD as the grandson of a lord, but not of a king, and the glyphs say that only a few years earlier, Ch'akach Lakamhach, literally that the city was axed. Like the original Age of Empires 2 developers, the Mayas often liked to mark major battle events with an axe. Axe marks the spot, as they say. Usually this referred to the sacking of the losing city, and sometimes, but not always, the execution of its ruler and/or its reduction to tributary status. The perpetrators were the powerful Khan or Snake Kingdom of Calakmul, who had mounted a major assault from an unusual distance. When Pakal was 8 years old, Lakamha faced the wrath of Khan once again in another brutal battle event. The city was axed again by Calakmul under the leadership of Scroll Serpent. The ruler of Lakamhach, Ahen Yolmat, escaped death at the time, but perished the following year, leaving no male heir and creating a crisis of succession. Pakal and his family competed with other claimants to the throne, and in 615, following a confusing interregnum, Pakal ultimately emerged as the city's new king, being crowned by his mother Sakkuk, who helped rule during Pakal's formative years. One of the other contenders to the throne, Ikmuimuan, moved to the northwestern allied city of Tortuguero and became king there after his failed bid for the throne of Lakamha. But the cities remained friendly for a time, and Pakal began to rebuild his battered city and eventually married a princess named Ish Tzakbu Ahau from the satellite city of Ushtek-U. Pakal's building projects included major additions to what would become the fantastic palace of Palenque or Lakamha, which was well positioned to spot any would-be invaders and commanded a view of the vast plain that extended all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. You'll probably recognize its iconic tower as the inspiration for the watchtower of the Mesoamerican architecture set. Among other things, Pakal's architects were particularly known for their mastery of the corbelled arch, and a number of weight-saving innovations that allowed his palace to be unusually spacious and well-lit compared to many other structures throughout the Maya world. But there was plenty more going on besides city building, and a little over a decade after taking power, an important nobleman from Lakamha was captured after a battle with the city of Piedras Negras. Throughout this period, there is evidence for minor but consistent skirmishes with various vassals of Calakmul and other enemies, as long periods of total peace were rare. Even so, Pakal oversaw almost 2 decades of relative peace and prosperity, and in addition to palace expansions and monumental building projects, created impressive subterranean aqueducts to control the water flow, including pressurized aqueducts such as the Piedras Bolas aqueduct, which were previously thought to be unknown in the New World before the arrival of the Spanish. In addition to the practical uses for such systems, it's thought that they may have been used to create visible fountains springing up as part of the impressive display of Pakal's city. But even this relative peace was not to last, and the drums of war could be heard in the distance. We'll be right back after the break. In 644 AD, Ikmuimuan died, once a pretender to the throne of Lakamha, but who had contented himself with kingship of the western town of Tortuguero, leaving his son Alamahau, or Jaguar Lord, to rule. Jaguar Lord was an impressive warrior who claimed descent from the same dynastic founder as Pakal and broke off the alliance with Lakamha by attacking its allied cities. His initial attacks against the cities of Ushtek-U and Muyop were repulsed, although in 649 he captured the allied city of Usikh and brutally conquered the city of Comalcalco, weakening Pakal's dominions. In 655, Jaguar Lord attacked Ushtek-U again, but the defenses held, and there seems to have been a peace that halted the dynastic infighting. Jaguar Lord seemingly content with his expanded domains, and Pakal looking eastward to the ever-present threat of Calakmul, as well as the valuable and important Usumacinta River and Tabasco Plain. In 659, Pakal led his army on a modest but successful preemptive campaign against client states and allies of Calakmul, capturing 6 lords of Pipa, Inha, Yashkap, and Atun, and exacting tribute and taking the enemy city of Wakapha and its ruler, which he made a tributary and installed rulers loyal to himself. Pakal's campaigns continued, and in 662 he captured 6 more enemy lords from nearby towns, and in 663 defeated another lord of Pipa, commemorating his victory on his monuments. In 672 and 675, Pakal and his armies fought several more battles, although the enemy contenders are not well documented and may have been relatively minor towns and cities. Even so, the result of these battles is recorded as a humiliating defeat for Pakal's opponents, culminating in the capture of an important lord called Sakhalk-in. Pakal's battles, while limited in scope, played a key role in expanding his domain and deterring enemy aggression, and along with his construction projects, in making the ruined city he inherited as a 12-year-old into one of the most wealthy and important powers in the region, and standing as a bulwark or shield against the powerful Khan or Snake Kingdom of Calakmul. Pakal's final years were devoted to consolidating his domain, expanding trade, especially along the nearby Usumacinta River, and creating more monumental constructions, including the Temple of the Inscriptions, in which he would soon be laid to rest. At the age of 80, and after a 68-year reign in which his city had become more wealthy and impressive than Tikal, Pakal the Great died in 683 AD, leaving his son to carry on his legacy. Pakal was buried deep within a hidden passage underneath the Temple of the Inscriptions, which would not be disturbed for well over 1,000 years. When Mexican archaeologist Alberto Ruz Luye discovered the secret tomb less than 100 years ago, it was one of the most remarkable finds in New World archaeology, and clearly the most impressive burial until the discovery of the Sipan tomb in Peru. Pakal's tomb featured an intricately carved sarcophagus and a well-preserved burial including a jade mask and other grave goods, as well as a wealth of information. The skeleton itself was first thought to have belonged to a much younger person due to the excellent preservation of its teeth, but later studies confirmed advanced age, with the dental preservation attributable to the refined diet of the nobility and good hygiene. So that's a highlight of what we know about Pakal, and of course there's a lot that we don't know, as we are missing many historical records, and the site of Lakamha itself remains mostly unexcavated. But what we do know paints a picture of a great and long-ruling king who brought the city out of the ashes of repeated devastation to become a significant regional power, adding to its influence through diplomacy and conquest, and patronizing feats of architecture and engineering that were exceptional throughout the Americas, and all while standing as a shield against the powerful Khan or Snake Kingdom that had been the bane of his city and others in times past. As far as campaign potential, of course, there are many more details we'd like to have that were never committed to stone, but we do have a strong foundation of historical data to build upon. The first scenario might involve simply surviving the second major attack by the Khan Kingdom under Squirrel Serpent, and completing several tasks to gain the support of the nobility, and stand apart from Ikmuimuan and other claimants to the throne, such as repairing the city and capturing relics to affirm his connection to Muan Mat. the legendary divine lord associated with the city's ruling dynasty, and of course being crowned king. The second scenario could involve recruiting engineers and architects, constructing aqueducts and the palace of Palenque or Lacamha, while fighting off opportunistic raiders and building or strengthening relationships with nearby towns through trade, diplomacy, and marriage. And finally, the battle against Piedras Negras, where one of Pacal's lords was captured. The third scenario might center around the rise of the powerful Jaguar Lord from the breakaway polity of Tortuguero and his attacks on Pacal's allies, culminating in 655 with the successful defense against his attack on Ushte-Ku, and finally making a peace agreement with him. The fourth scenario could begin with Pacal's first campaigns, including taking the city of Huacapá and other towns and the capture of the first 6 lords, and perhaps even the later campaign in which he captured 6 more lords from various other towns and defeated the Lord of Pipa. The fifth and final scenario might begin with his lesser documented battles, including the capture of Sacalquin, and with war breaking out with Yaxchilan and Calakmul's vassals, Pacal quelling a rebellion of a tributary city, and finally building a wonder to represent the Temple of the Inscriptions in which he would be buried, while defending against further attacks. This isn't set in stone like the monumental inscriptions we're drawing from, but I'd call it a reasonable outline that could even be expanded in historically plausible ways for the sake of gameplay, although I think it's perfectly viable as is. This has been a historical overview of the life of Pacal the Great and how he might feature in a hypothetical AoE 2 campaign, and I hope you found it interesting. That's all for today, and thanks for watching. Chabek Cheek.